coming to you from beautiful Globe, Arizona. Where the heck is that? I live here and I hardly know. Actually, we're in the mountains east of Phoenix, and I'm so excited to have first-time offender, first-time hazing victim, John Weathers of Gentle Giant, and so much more coming to us from Wales. John, welcome. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Lovely to be here.
Great.
Here.
Thank you so much. I've got so much to talk to you about. So first of all, I have to share this. This was my introduction to Gentle Giant when I was 14.
Wow.
I'll be 61 a month from tomorrow, and I was playing with a bass player named Mark Ludmer, who might be watching. Mark was 19 at the time, and he started playing this bass line, bum, bum, ba-da-dum, bum, boo-doo-doo, bum, bum. And I'm like, what is that? That is so cool. And he gave me this album. I've been a huge fan of Gentle Giant ever since. And so it's really exciting to have you here. Now that we're 11 years and 3 months into Drum Talk TV, I finally get to have you on. So
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those who don't know, John joined Gentle Giant on what was supposed to be, I guess, a temporary basis when Malcolm got injured in a motorcycle accident. But then you ended up recording Octopus with the band. And where did things go from there? How was it decided that you were the guy? Was it because of how Octopus went, or did Malcolm willfully just bow out? How did that go down, John?
Well, it's just that Malcolm's recovery was going to take so long.
Oh.
And by the time, we'd done a tour, and then the time came to do the album, and Malcolm still wasn't there. But by that time, the band had changed a lot, because Octopus was kind of written while I was playing in the band.
Right.
And it almost changed the direction, because my approach was very, very different to Malcolm's, more kind of straight ahead.
Yeah.
So, and the guys just said, well, we prefer this approach. We like it this way. So would you like to stay on? And I said, hell yeah.
That's awesome. That's great. And also for those who don't know, we'll get back to more Gentle Giant lore for sure. But for those who don't know, John has also he was with Eyes of Blue before Gentle Giant, Buzzy Linhart, the backup band for that album, Buzzy, right? If I remember right. Yeah, The Big Sleep, Graham Bond, and Magic. And then, of course, lots of albums with Gentle Giant, The Neutrons, Man, Peter Welsh, Hugh Criswell, and TV shows as well. Going way back, why the drums? What got you into the drums? And I know you play other instruments. You've written a lot of music as well, produced. Why the drums, John?
Well, the drums came first. I was just listening to All Shook Up, and by Elvis Presley. I was a big music fan. There was always music in the house. My parents were, loved music.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard All Shook Up, and there's a great snare sound on it.
Yeah.
I don't know how he's doing it, but I could hear other things going on. And there was a bass drum, and there was the hi-hat going on. And I thought, how is he doing that?
One guy.
Yeah, one guy. So I started trying to play along with it, and then I happened to go to a St. Patrick's Day dance in the school I went to, a Catholic school, and there was a skiffle band on, and they had a drummer, and I just looked at him, and I just went, "Oh, I got to do this."
How old were you, John? How old were you then?
I would have been about 13, maybe. 12 or 13, something like that, when I first started. Maybe a little earlier. Yeah. I don't know.
And was there much of along your musical journey, Was there much of a funk influence? Because I hear a lot of funk in your drumming, especially with Gentle Giant. Is that something that's just showing through, or is there a conscious learning effort in that genre on your part?
Well, I think it was more to do with the progression of bands that I went through.
Ah, that
You
makes
know,
sense.
starting with uh, playing rock and roll in Liverpool when I moved there,
Right.
and then coming back and joining a rock and roll band, going through the Chuck Berry thing and all of that, and then moving from there into like soul music with the Eyes of
Hmm.
Blue, and then from soul to uh, um, progressive music, then back to blues and soul with Graham Bond. Uh,
Right.
and then I played for a while with the Grease Band, and they were like a funk. There was a lot of like real heavy stuff in there. So by the time I got to Giant, I that was the way I played.
Yeah, yeah, it shows and it's great. And even within Channel Giant, there's certainly an arc of how the band morphed, the music, yet the fundamentals of that sound ever since Octopus, that first album you were on, still
Mm.
stuck with it. When you look at Freehand, when you look at the Missing Piece, Giant for a Day, all those different things, the sound certainly morphed, but it's still Gentle Giant. And when I look at two of my favorite concert videos, honestly, Gentle Giant, they're both German TV shows, if I remember right. Gentle Giant in 1972, wearing kind of more of the hippie Renaissance kind of outfits. And then the one 2 years later in 74, where you famously wore the Oakland A's outfit and Derek in the jumpsuit. The music and the look of the band was so different, yet the music was still kind of the same, if that makes sense. Talk about how that was consciously or unconsciously done, or how much was that discussed, or did Derek just say, here's what we're doing? How did that change? So much of a visual change as well happened within just 2 years.
Um, well, the Raymond and Kerry, they just started writing like funkier stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
They would come to rehearsals with their latest batch of songs,
Right.
and we'd go through it, and I would play whatever I thought was apt for the track, and if they wanted something different, they'd ask, and I'd do it. A typical example would be the triplet bass drum thing in "So Sincere."
Yeah. Da-da-da, ja, da-da-da, ja.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I love that
I
song.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's such an unusual pattern. I mean,
Yeah.
but that was Raymond. I mean, Raymond
Ah,
said to me, he said, "Could you play like a triplet thing?" And I said, "I tried." I said, "No, I can't. But give me 10 minutes, and I will."
yeah. Nice. The great late Ray Shulman, who sadly passed April 1st last year,
Mm.
um, was just such a force in that band. I mean, everybody was, of course, but every song practically, it seems like he's playing a different instrument. He's playing bass on one, guitar on another, different kind of guitar on another, the recorder, the violin. I mean, the whole band was just made up of so much musical talent that you guys could pretty much play anything you could think of, it seemed like, because of everyone's versatility with the classical and the Baroque influence, not just influence, but actually playing it, with Carrie getting out the cello and sharing vibes duties with you. And just
Mhm.
an incredible amount of music came out in only 8 years, really, right?
Yeah, and it was such a broad spectrum. That's
Yeah.
that's what was so invigorating, really, about the band, is that it was a band of musicians, and everybody could like double up on different instruments. You
Yeah.
want baroque? Yeah, we can do that. And the vibes. I learned the parts. Music is in me. I can knock out a tune on any instrument, I guess. except for like, or I think I'd have trouble with sax and trumpet and
Right.
heavy duty.
Oh yeah, Ray on trumpet as well, and Derek on
Yeah.
sax, and during So Sincere, you see at the beginning on one of those live shows, Ray takes off his bass, he hands it to Derek, Derek takes over on bass. It's just a musical merry-go-round, just amazing, very unique. I don't think I've ever seen a band where the members played so many different instruments and even traded off different instruments. And then, of course, the big percussion finale at the end, which was amazing. And if anyone has any questions, type it in the chat. I'll go ahead and relay questions to John as well. We have a comment for you, John, from Bella Lagrisi. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Bella. It says, thanks for a lifetime of wonderful music. And on that point, John, did you ever think into your 70s, into the new millennium, into the 2000s, that your music with Gentle Giant would still be so relevant and so appreciated by people born way after that music came and went as far as publishing goes? Like, what are your thoughts on that as you look back?
Well, it gives me a hell of a warm feeling. I'll admit that to you. I mean, at the time, we were just a band going out playing and
doing your thing,
ourselves, having a great time. I mean, the band always had a great time, especially on stage, and we were there to make sure that the audience had a good time. They paid money to see us, and so you got to give it all back, plus you got to make them so happy when they're leaving that theater that they just want to jump for joy. And
that's great
to have. I must admit that I watch all these young guys doing the reviews. That I got a whole list of them. They're really nice guys. JP, and he's a really nice guy and thinks a lot of us. And John Slop, is it? They seem absolutely amazed, and to see their reaction to something that we did all those years ago, 50 years ago.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because you're 77 now, right?
77, just, yeah.
And so you were in your 20s when all that was going on. You probably didn't even think ahead of your 50s, let alone your 70s at that time. I'm not sure anybody does.
No.
That's so funny. Some more comments coming in. Doug Hodges says, greatest prog band ever. Mario Bello watching from Montreal, fan since 1972. Doug Hodges is in LA as well, my hometown. Bella Lagrisi says, how did you enjoy the 5-part drum sections? It was a real treat for us fans.
Well, that started because I always hated drum solos. I hated playing drum solos. I mean, even watching other drummers play them, I used to get bored at some point because, you start with thrash everything and then go quiet and then try and build play some rudiments and try and, I'm good at this, I'm good at that, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. And then the big finish really used to bore me. So with the fact that Kerry had a degree in percussion, right. Raymond was a pretty good drummer. When I first started, they used to join me at the end of my drum solo, as I was obliged to do a drum solo. And Kerry used to play the small tom, and right. Raymond used to go on the floor tom.
Yeah.
And with Gary being Gary's a great drummer. He's a really, really good drummer. And it came to a point where I said, guys, I don't like playing solos at all. I'm really cheesed off with it. Can we all play a drum solo and make a big feature out of it? And so we went into rehearsal and got hold of a few more drums, and Kerry wrote parts for the xylophones, and
you get the little miniature kid xylophones and chimes. Yeah.
And I got a glockenspiel, and I used to join in on that. And so that's the way that developed, was because I hated drum solos.
I'm having a crazy flashback. I haven't thought of this in so long. I was in a band from this particular band from like 1978 to 1981, and I did a drum solo, and I did a drum solo that combined stuff from some of my favorite drum solos. Part of the live version of Moby Dick from The Song Remains the Same. I have timpani drums,
Yeah.
and some stuff from All the World's a Stage, the first Live Rush album. And I had a glockenspiel. I still have it. And I used to play the ding 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 doodle doodle doodle, and then I would do the ba-dum ba ba-dum ba ba-dum ba. And this is before video. And I always wondered, how is John Weathers doing all those different parts? I didn't know until YouTube was born, and then I saw that video from German television, kind of like when you heard All Shook Up. How is all that going on? But I used to pick that part of your guys' percussion ensemble finale into my drum solo. That's just how much your music meant to me. And like I said, this was my introduction. And this is an original issue. For those who don't know, this is one of the best live albums ever. And speaking of live, you, like I said earlier, you famously wore the Oakland A's uniform on that tour. I think that was the Freehand tour, if I remember right. Is that right? Freehand or Power of the Glory?
Yeah. Oh, would have been Freehand.
Freehand, yeah. And are you still an Oakland A's fan?
Pardon?
Are you still an Oakland A's fan?
Oh, always. I will always be an Oakland A's fan.
And what attracted you to the Oakland A's? Was it something about that town going through on tour, or what was it that attracted you to, of all teams, that one?
Well, I put together the story for Noah Schulman. It's actually on YouTube.
Oh, I gotta check that out. I don't think I've seen it.
Do you want me to retell the story, or do you?
Yeah, go ahead if you don't mind sharing it with us. That would be great.
Well, we played a gig in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Okay.
And Fort Wayne, Indiana is not a very jumping place on a Sunday. We had the Sunday off. We played it on Saturday night, and we were staying in rather a brown hotel, a 1930s hotel. There was no restaurant. Everything was dead. All the bars were closed. There was nothing open at all. The only thing open was a sub joint, a submarine place down the street. So we were really, really bored. There was nothing to do. It was raining. So we went and got a sub, came back, and we were sitting in the hotel room, couldn't even get a beer, and switched on the TV, and a baseball game came on. And it was the Oakland A's versus somebody. And it was like a huge ray of sunshine.
Oh, wow.
Their outfits, they just looked so beautiful.
Yeah.
They
the
looked
bright green and yellow.
lovely. And I went, I gotta get one of those. and so we went from there to New York, and the guy from the record company, Irwin Sirota, I said to him, how do I get a baseball uniform? And he said, "Oh, that's simple enough. We just get in touch with the people who make the uniforms, and we'll get one made for you."
Oh, wow.
He said, we get your name on the back and all of that stuff. So he got in touch with McAuliffe and set it all up. It was quite expensive, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
The reasoning I had was these guys go out and play baseball. They get full of sweat. So the uniform's got to be nice and easy to clean.
Right, and durable, of course.
Yeah. So I just,
That's great.
And people started giving me baseball shirts.
Of different teams or Oakland A's?
Different teams, yeah.
Nice. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. There's some great questions here. Let's see. Let's start with Doug Hodges said he saw the the freehand tour in LA. I never got to see you guys live for some reason. Every time you came through LA and played at the Shrine Auditorium, at first I was too young, and then I had a gig or something. But also I want to share the name of this album, Playing the Fool, for those who don't know. Gentle Giant Live, Playing the Fool. Get the album. It was my first introduction to the band. I've been hooked ever since. But Elizabeth Reese has a neat question. Elizabeth is saying, in fact, let's see if I'll show it up here. There we go. She says, did you know before you started at the 1980 tour that it would be the last tour and that the Civilian would be the last album together? Was that decided ahead of time, or how did that end come about, if you don't mind sharing that?
No, not when we embarked on the tour. We were promoting, the Civilian album.
Right.
But I think about 2/3 the way through the tour, the way it was going, it was an unspoken decision, really. We could see the end coming. The record company weren't showing very much interest at all. We actually financed the tour. We all remortgaged our houses.
Oh, wow.
To put the money up to finance the tour.
Yeah.
But we still put up 110% into it, because that's the way Giant were. I mean, right up until the last gig.
Yeah.
We knew the last gig was going to be the last gig. But there's a great recording of it, and you won't get more energy than that.
Yeah. Wow. Is it an official release?
It's readily available.
Okay. I got to check that out. I was unaware of that. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks for the question, Elizabeth. And Dog Drum, watching us on YouTube, is asking, who were your influences? You mentioned that your early first influence was hearing, way back when, what that was, and then you saw the skiffle band. Who were some of your early influences, and are there more contemporary drummers that you admire as well that you're aware of?
Well, first, thanks for the question, Dog Drum. I can put it pretty well in a nutshell. All the rock and roll drummers.
Yeah,
I loved. The Booker T's drummer.
Oh yeah,
was a huge influence on me. Al Jackson Jr. He was a lovely player.
Yeah.
So hardly anything.
Yeah,
played that tempo and the snare, beautiful. Then I saw when I was with the Eyes of Blue, I saw Ginger Baker play with the Graham Bond. Jack Bruce was on bass, and he kind of introduced me to the triplet with the toms and the bass drum.
Yeah.
But the major influence was Bonham. When I think it must have been 68 or 69, the Eyes of Blue supported Led Zeppelin when they came back from their first American tour.
Wow.
And we were in a dance hall, and there was a balcony that went all the way around. So when they went on, I was able to get like right above Bonham. And I've never heard anybody play the drums so loud in all my life. And he was playing like triplets, quadruplets, and he was just so magnificent. I stole every single thing he played.
Oh, that's so cool. They were my first concert. I was 14. My dad took me to see them at the LA Forum in 1977. And, a lot of people around my age or older cite seeing the Beatles on TV for the first time, and that made them want to become a drummer or guitar player or whatever. For me, I had already been playing drums 7 years. I was pretty good, but I wanted to be a scientist. I wanted to be an oceanographer. I thought that I'd be the next Jacques Cousteau. But when I saw Led Zeppelin in person, by the third song, I thought, oh, you mean that could be like a job? And that was that. I got my parents together and said, I don't want to be an oceanographer anymore. My mother so excitingly said, oh, what do you want to be? And I said, I want to be a professional drummer like John Bonham. And so we revived her with the paddles, you know, had to shock her with the paddles a few times. And to her credit, she found an audition exactly 1 year later that ended up being my first paid gig. And I toured with a singing group all across the US and back at 15 years old. So I was lucky. My parents were very supportive. But yeah, John Bonham was, to see it live before YouTube Boys and Girls or Facebook or anything else, and to see what he was doing was just mind-blowing. It changed my approach to certain things, especially with my left hand, John, because when I saw him do those fills towards the end of Achilles' Last Stand, from the snare to both cymbals, I thought, oh, you can use your left hand for that? Like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
I stole so much stuff of him that night. I just went home after the gig with a head full of bricks. Like, let's go, and started putting them in everywhere I could.
That's
and developing. But there are so many other influences. I mean, Gad and, you know, normal, the influences that every drummer takes on board, really.
Yeah.
You know, Buddy Rich, beautiful.
Yeah.
The epitome of a drummer.
Yeah.
No one will ever be able to play as good as Buddy Rich.
Yeah. Yeah.
No
An alien for sure. Dropped off from another planet or something.
Oh, yeah. It can never happen again.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. Here's a comment I got to share with you, John, and everybody else. This is from the Prague Corner watching us on YouTube. Thank you. And it says, the world's most underrated drummer ever. And you know what? I think I agree. Not that people don't rate you high or appreciate you, but I think a lot, you know, let's be real. I think Gentle Giant has soared very high under a lot of radars. And it's like one of those things when you discover, it's like, oh my gosh, where the hell has this been my whole life? You know, I was lucky I was only 14, but I'm sure there's people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, you know, just finding out about Gentle Giant thanks to all the re-releases. And we'll talk about the Steven Wilson mixes in a moment. But you know, I do agree. I think you're extremely underrated, but I also think that there's a compliment to that. And the compliment to that, I believe, is that you fit so well in with the band and the band's sound that that's what is known more, as opposed to you getting the props specifically as the drummer, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. From a chops point of angle, from a chops angle, I've always said that I haven't got the chops of the likes of Carl Palmer. You know, he's got all the rudiments down. He's got it down to a fine art. Beautiful, lovely stuff. I haven't got those chops, but I can rock. I hope. Yeah. I put the little bit I've got 100% into the music.
Oh, it shows too. It really does.
Really do everything. Just 100% and hit them hard. You know. Let's go for it. Think about the drum break you're going to play like 6 bars before, and that kind of thing. And I listen to some of the drum breaks now, and I go, hell, how did I do that? You know, it's just something that came.
It spills out, right?
Yeah, it does. Part of the reason was when we recorded, we never did more than 3 takes.
Oh.
Never, ever. If it got to 3 takes and we didn't get it, we'd ditch it and come back later, because the freshness would
lose,
disappear, you know. and how can I put it? The adventurous. Let's try something. Let's go
Spontaneity
try
of it,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
was that part of was the writing process done in the studio a lot or ahead of time or a combination of that?
it was a combination mostly.
Mhm.
It depends how much pressure there was,
Right.
because there was a period in the middle. I think it was 73 to 76, where we were constantly touring. So uh, writing the next album, a lot of it was done on the road, and then you'd get back
Mm.
off the road, and you'd have 2 weeks to write the album,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
another week to rehearse it and in the studio and
No
record it.
pressure.
No, the only album that we had some time with really was The Missing Piece, uh,
Mm.
where quite a bit of it was written beforehand, and we actually took that on tour.
Oh,
So, uh, excuse me, side two um, was had we played most of it on tour on a complete tour, so that was really like no problem at all.
yeah.
That was all done and dusted.
Interesting. I also want to share this question by Elizabeth. Going back to that footage of the 1980 tour, she asked if there's anything coming out in the future. She said the ones available are amateur and pretty bad. I think she's referring to the fact that they're fan shot and
Yeah,
not like, actual pro quality. Do you know anything about that, John? Is there something that we're unaware of out there?
there's
No?
not everything. Every visual recording of the band is out. It's
Okay.
done.
Okay,
So
cool. And here's an interesting one. Okay, I got to share this one as well. This is from the Bolton Iron Maiden. He says, I was fortunate enough to meet John on a few occasions, but the highlight of my life was at the GGORG Wales, where John let me play his Ludwig Hollywood kit. I played So Sincere and hit wonderful triplet bass drum pattern. Love you, John. Do you remember that, John?
yes, of course I do. He's a
Oh,
good
that's
friend,
awesome. That's cool. Pete Wilder says also,
and it's not a Hollywood kit. It's a super classic.
oh, is that what it was? Do you still have it?
Yes,
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
it's about 10 feet that way.
That's cool. That's so cool. I've never gotten rid of any of my stuff. I can't. I get too attached. It's too emotional for me. I've never gotten rid of anything. And Pete Wilder says also, let's not neglect to mention John's great vibraphone and glockenspiel playing. We did touch on that earlier. And what was your natural attraction to that? Was it just the sound of the vibes, or did you play them in school or anything like that?
No, no, it's just that when we decided to put On Reflection into the set, it needed a vibraphone part, because of course Kerry was on cello.
Right.
Um, I said, "Oh, I'll play that." So
That's so cool.
he showed me the part, and I played it.
That's funny. I love mallet instruments. They're fun to play, but it just fit with your music so well as
Mm.
well, which is great.
So, the honest truth of it is, I can't play vibraphone. I just learned the part.
Well, is there a difference though? If you learn the part, I think you can now play it. At least that part. Let's
Well,
talk about the Steven Wilson mixes. What do you think of that? Hearing, I presume you've listened to them, have you?
yes, of course.
So, what do you think of listening to your music kind of reimagined in a way so many years forward? What were your reactions to that?
I thought it sounded great.
Okay,
It
good.
kind of he pulls things out that were buried.
Hmm.
Oh, can I just go back quickly
Yes,
and say
please.
I remember who it was that played the kit?
Oh,
Paul. Hello, Paul.
there
I
you
hope you're
go.
well. Okay.
Nice.
Anyway, yeah, I think he brings a new dimension, um, and he helps raise bass a lot.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, he puts a lot more bottom in raised bass. Now it needed it particularly in on the missing piece, because
Yeah,
that was missing.
yeah.
The studio we went to in Hilvarenbeek in Holland, there was a fault. There was false bass
Oh, wow.
in the monitoring system. So
But it
when we
didn't
got
show
it,
up in the recording.
yeah, so when we got it back and started to mix it, the bass wasn't there. But
Interesting.
and of course, technology has moved on so much now.
Yeah,
You can put it back in. You couldn't put it back in then.
right.
So the original recording was a bit bass light, but now Stephen's put it back in and it sounds lovely.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. And Dog Drum just mentioned one of my favorites. So this this is for sure. You've got to see the BBC Sight and Sound concert. That's one of my favorites. It's this may sound weird. That's one of my cooking favorites. I cook dinner 6 nights a week, and that's one of the most common things I put on while I'm cooking is that concert. Just absolutely love it. What are some of your fondest memories? You told the Oakland A story. Would love to that. What are some other fond memories you have of being on the road? Was there any chronic practical joking going on? Are there any fun stories you'd like to share?
Um,
It's a family show, but you can be a little loose with
yeah,
it.
it's a family show, but generally we were a very well behaved band on the road. You know, I mean, we could stay in Holiday Inns anywhere under our real name. So our touring was not so much a job of work, but I mean we enjoyed being tourists, particularly in America. So we enjoyed being on the road, and the climax of the day being the gig.
Hmm.
What we hated was days off.
uh,
Now I'm desperately filling in here, trying to think of a decent story to tell you that'll make you sides. But well, there is one that Gary might not might not like me telling, which is a story from Milan. I'll make it as concise as possible.
okay, no
We,
worries.
we were doing a TV show in Milan, and it was an all day thing from like 8 in the morning till 8 at night. Um, After the show finished, we went back to the hotel, and that was all dead. So we went to a bar across the road, and we got a little bit, loose. So we go back to the hotel, and we go upstairs, and Gary goes into the bathroom. You see, now the bathroom window was open, and it was huge, double glazed wooden timber thing, and it was over the sink.
Uh-huh.
So Gary is kind of swaying back and forth, and he slips over and falls backward into the bath.
Oh, goodness.
His feet went up and lifted the window off its hinges, and it came smashing down
Oh,
onto the wash hand basin.
oh, wow.
It just shattered it to bits, and it ended up just a pipework and 2 taps. I was in the next room, out on the veranda, and Derek is two doors down, and he's shouting and screaming at me, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, "I haven't done anything." He said, "It must be. It's you. It's you."
Always the drummer's fault.
Yeah, right. Anyway, that's the best I can do with
That's
it.
hilarious.
And
That's funny. Thanks for sharing that.
we had to pay for the new sink. It was really an accident, but it was such a strange accident. And
That's
Gary
funny.
felt terrible about it.
Funny. Shout out to Lou Calderola, who is my co-host on our show, um, Under the Influence, where we share common influences. Lou is watching, big Channel Giant fan. Steven, who you met earlier, Steven Schinder, our producer, says, any memories of touring with Yes? Steven says, yeah, I'll share this. Steven says, I read there were several shows in the 72, 73, and several more in 76. How about other bands on the road that you toured with? Yeah, do you have memories of being on the road with Yes that you want to share?
Oh yeah. Oh, great memories. We did well with Yes. um, it was great opening for them because obviously we were well matched.
Yeah.
The Yes audience were a Gentle Giant audience as well. It was the same with Tull.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
first time we went to America. Um, uh, there was a weird little period with the Yes tours when um, the Eagles were on the tour.
interesting.
So we opened the show, and the Eagles went on, and then Yes. Well, I mean, the
Oh,
Eagles weren't getting
yeah. That's
a
not a
very good
match.
reception,
Yeah.
and they were being pretty rude to us
Oh,
generally.
really? Oh,
Oh,
wow.
well,
Great.
I mean, a country and western band in between two prog bands.
Yeah. You know what? That reminds me of the weird matchup I had, John, going to a Rush show when they still had opening bands. They
Mm.
had, I can't remember the third. There were three opening bands that were so out of place. 38 Special, Molly Hatchet, and some other Southern rock band where opening for Rush, it just didn't make sense. So sometimes I guess that happens. I also want to share another comment from someone in Brazil. Ramon says, I'm a Gentle Giant fan and an amateur drummer from Brazil. Just want to thank John for his music and for all the inspiration. One of my favorite drummers ever. Thanks, Ramon, all the way from Brazil. We have a huge following in Brazil as well. And Bangkok, Thailand, of all places. We have followers, John, in over 100 countries, which blows my
Wow.
mind. It was never my intention when I started this. So lots of fun. A lot of Gentle Giant fans out there appreciating what you've done. So I want to ask you something that's a little bit more. One more question from Lou before I ask our closing question. Lou Calderola says, John, do you have a memory of a favorite drummer to watch live that you toured with and got to see often up close playing? I think, Lou, maybe you missed it, but I think it's the John Bonham story that you shared. Yeah.
Uh, yes, but we never toured with them.
Right. Oh, that's right. You opened for them at that show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the when we first came over to America on the Sabbath tour, and then we were lucky enough to bag the Tull tour, and that was the thick as a brick tour,
Oh, so Barrymore Barlow.
which was absolutely wonderful. And I stood behind Barry.
Oh,
I think it must be 28 times
oh, wow.
the whole month.
And like everyone else, you stole everything he did.
I didn't steal anything of Barry's. I just admired his playing
Yeah.
because I mean,
Great player.
Thick as a Brick has got some great drum breaks in it and
Yeah.
different time signatures, and I just loved watching him do it because it was like an artist watching an artist paint
Yeah.
paint the Mona Lisa. You know, he was a beautiful player, lovely player, and a great guy. We got on like a house on fire.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Got to have him on. He's another one of my bucket list drummers, as you have been. I've got to have Barry on. But my closing question is this. This is the John Weathers Fun Fact segment. So and now you're not touring like you used to, so maybe you have two different answers, but back in the day when you were recording and touring and writing and all those things, and now that you're not doing that like you were then, what did you like to do then when you were away from music, and what's your favorite thing to do now that has nothing to do with music?
Oh, 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 right. I wish you'd have told me about this one earlier.
You can think about it. It's okay.
What did I like to do then? Well, when I was in with Giant, I've got a place out in the country, and I used to come home and do gardening.
Ah,
I grow vegetables and stuff like that.
I love it.
There was one time when I turned up for rehearsal after doing all this growing vegetables, and Derek said to me, "Oh, is that soil underneath your fingers?"
That is funny.
These days, I'm not capable of doing very much at all because of the disablement I've got. I don't walk too well. I can't even play guitar. My hands have gone. So what I really enjoy doing now is revisiting all the music I love on
Oh,
YouTube. So I watch great music from way back. And there's some great stuff on YouTube, and all different kind of musical genres. I like hillbilly music,
ah,
and blues and stuff like that. And so that's what I do now.
oh, that's great.
I can't do gardening anymore,
Uh,
and I like to watch young guys tell me how great I was.
that's awesome, and you certainly have been just a wealth of wonderful music.
Tongue in cheek, that is, by the way.
Yeah, I know, but seriously, a wealth of really wonderful music. I'm a gardener as well. I think that's for the most part what keeps me off the news. I have a little greenhouse that I grow some herbs and vegetables, and then a above ground. I built risers out of wooden pallets, and I do container gardening. I grow flowers to keep me off the news, and so far it's working. I was on the news once; I slipped once, but other than that, it's worked out pretty well. So, John, hang on the line for me. Steve will join us again before you go. Thanks, everybody, so much for watching on Drum Talk TV's channels and Yes Shift as well. And we have one of John's partners in crime on March 6th. That will be on Yes Shift and Drum Talk TV. And that's Derek Shulman will be joining us as well. So I never thought I'd have two Gentle Giant members on within a week of each other. How cool is that? So thanks, John, so much. Hang on the line. And thank you, everybody. Stay tuned and be well and be nice to everyone and go put on some Gentle Giant. Get the live album. I don't know if I mentioned that. Playing the phone. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye now. Thanks, everybody.